am 67 years old, and I haven't heard my son's voice in 14 years. 14 years! You know how long that is? That's long enough for a baby to be born and grow into a teenager. That's long enough for seasons to blur together until you stop counting them. That's long enough for an old man to forget what his own boy sounds like.
And I have forgotten. I try to hear him in my memory, and all I get is static, like a station that went off the air and never came back. It's 3 a.m. right now. I'm sitting in my kitchen. The only light in here is coming from an old voicemail machine sitting on my counter. It's cracked down the side, held together with a piece of electrical tape that's been there so long it's turned yellow. There's a little red light on it. It blinks, not because there's a message. There hasn't been a new message on that thing in years. It blinks because the wiring in this old house is bad and the power flickers, and every time it does, that little red light pulses like a heartbeat. And every single time my chest tightens. Every single time, for just half a second, I think, maybe it's him. Maybe he finally called. He never has. The faucet in here drips, the refrigerator hums, and that red light blinks. That's my life now. Those are my companions. I'm going to tell you the sentence that destroyed my family. And I need you to listen carefully, because you might be about to say it. You might have already said it. And if you have, you need to understand what it costs. Not tomorrow, not eventually, right now. Let me take you back. Let me tell you who I used to be, because I need you to understand I wasn't some monster. That's what makes this worse. Monsters know what they are. I thought I was a good father. I was a contractor. Built things with my hands my whole life. Commercial jobs, residential, didn't matter. If it had a foundation, I could lay it. If it had a frame, I could raise it. I smelled like sawdust and diesel fuel 6 days a week. My hands were cracked and calloused, and I was proud of every single crack, because those were proof that I worked, proof that I provided, proof that I was a man. My own father never told me he loved me, not once, not on my birthday, not at my wedding, not when I shipped out. He showed it by working himself half to death at a lumber mill so we could eat. And I understood that. I respected it. I took it as gospel. A real father doesn't coddle. A real father hardens his children for the world. You don't raise kids with soft words and hugs. You raise them with standards, with expectations, with a firm hand and a short leash, because the world isn't soft. And if you send your child into it without calluses on their soul, you've failed them. That was my religion. I believed it the way other men believe in God. My son, Daniel, he was different from me from the start. Shark and a sparrow, that's what we were. When he was 9, his school had a talent show, and he played the cello on that stage. This little 9-year-old boy sitting in a folding chair with an instrument almost bigger than he was, and he played something so beautiful that his mother cried in the audience. I wasn't in the audience. I was on a job site 40 miles away pouring concrete for a strip mall foundation. She recorded it on one of those little handheld camcorders. She played it for me when I got home. I watched about 30 seconds, nodded, and said, "That's nice. He should try baseball." That's the kind of father I was. And the thing is, I wasn't being cruel. I genuinely believed I was steering him right. Music wasn't a career. Music wasn't a foundation you could build a life on. I was trying to protect him from disappointment. At least that's what I told myself while I was slowly cutting him apart. He had school plays. I missed them. He had recitals. I missed those too. When he got into his high school orchestra, first chair, his mother put the certificate on the refrigerator. I moved it to put up a takeout menu. I didn't even realize I'd done it. That's how little it registered. My son's achievement, covered up by a pizza coupon. And the whole time I kept thinking the same thing. One day he'll thank me. One day when he's older, when he's a man, he'll look back and understand that I was the one who pushed him to be tough. He'll see that everything I did was because I loved him too much to let him be soft. He never thanked me. And now I sit here in a dark kitchen that smells like stale coffee and regret, and I know he never will. Now I need to tell you about the night, the specific night. I've replayed it so many times in my head that the memory has edges on it, sharp enough to cut. And it still cuts, every time. Daniel was 22. He'd been living on his own for about a year, working odd jobs, gigging with a small ensemble on weekends, teaching cello lessons to kids at a community center. I thought it was a phase. I told his mother it was a phase. I said, give him another year of scraping by and he'll come to his senses. I really believed that. I believed that the world would do my job for me and eventually beat the music out of him. Then he came home one evening, drove 2 hours to come see us, walked through the front door with this look on his face that I didn't recognize at first because I'd never seen it directed at me. It was hope. He was looking at me with hope. The living room had wood-paneled walls, old carpet, dark brown, the kind that swallowed sound. There was a football game on TV. I'd muted it when he walked in, but the players were still moving silently behind him, like ghosts acting out something that didn't matter anymore. My mother had reheated pot roast. I could smell it from the kitchen. That heavy, warm, thick smell that should mean home, that should mean safety. Daniel sat down on the edge of the couch. He was leaning forward, elbows on his knees. He had an envelope in his hand. He looked at his mother first. Then he looked at me, and he said, Dad, I got accepted. Full scholarship, the conservatory in Boston. They want me. His mother made this sound, this small, sharp breath of pure joy. She put her hand over her mouth, and her eyes filled up, and she was already halfway out of her chair to hug him. And I laughed. I didn't smile. I didn't chuckle. I laughed. It came out of me like a bark, like something an animal would make. And then I said the sentence, the 8 words that I have carried on my back like a stone for 14 years. You were never good enough to make it, and you know it. The room went so quiet I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. I could hear the blood in my own ears. My mother froze. She just froze, halfway between sitting and standing, staring at me like I had pulled a knife. But Daniel didn't yell, he didn't argue, he didn't cry. And that's what haunts me most, because I could have handled any of those things. I could have met anger with anger, met tears with dismissal, met an argument with a louder argument. That's the only language I knew. Instead, he went quiet. Something behind his eyes just closed, like a door, like a light switching off. He looked at me for maybe 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds lasted my whole life. Then he folded the envelope, put it in his back pocket, and stood up. He picked up his car keys off the coffee table, and the sound of those keys lifting off the wood was so small, so ordinary, and it is the loudest sound I have ever heard. He hugged his mother. He whispered something to her that I couldn't make out. Then he walked to the front door. And he didn't slam it. That's the part people don't understand. He didn't slam it. He just pulled it shut behind him with a soft click, a gentle, final, ordinary click. And that click has echoed in this house for 14 years. I told myself he'd cool down. I told myself he was being dramatic. The next morning I picked up the phone, called him. He didn't answer, so I left a voicemail. And instead of apologizing, instead of saying, "Son, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I'm proud of you," I doubled down. I left him a message telling him to grow up, to stop chasing fairy tales, to come back when he was ready to have a real conversation about a real future. He saved that voicemail. His mother told me that years later. He saved it, which means he listened to it more than once, which means my voice, my own voice, the voice that should have been the safest sound in his world, the voice that should have said, "I love you, and I'm proud of you, and go, son, go show them what you can do." That voice became the thing he plays back when he needs to remember why he left. That is a weight you cannot put down, ever. Now let me tell you about today. Let me tell you what the rest of your life looks like when you choose pride over your child. That voicemail machine is still plugged into the wall. It's been plugged in there so long there's a dust ring around it on the counter. The tape inside is probably degraded beyond use. It doesn't matter. I keep it plugged in because unplugging it would mean admitting he's never going to call. And I'm not ready for that. I have never been ready for that. Every night I eat dinner alone.